U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says Arctic nations need to adapt in an arena of global power. Why? Because the Arctic is melting. Well, the Canadian Arctic is warming twice as fast as the rest of the world, according to the Canadian press, which means that the Canadian Northwest Passage is becoming more and more ice-free for longer periods each. Hi, welcome to the Great White North Report. I'm your host, Roman Deso. It's true, the Arctic is melting faster than my wife can figure out how to spend my money. Global warming and climate change is normally a natural cycle lasting about 100,000 years. This is how the 100,000-year cycle works. Ice sheets grow for about 90,000 years, then take about 10,000 years to collapse during warmer periods. Then the process repeats itself. Given that the last ice age ended about 11,700 years ago, isn't it time for Earth to get icy again? But today's warming is accelerated by human development, which is pumping huge amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. The Arctic zone is especially in trouble as sea ice melt has risen to record highs. For Canada, this has to do with the Northwest Passage, and I'm not referring to the album or song by Stan Rogers.
I would take the Northwest Passage,
but to the one that claimed the lives of the Franklin expedition. Running from Alaska in the west to Danish Greenland in the east, a major portion of it runs through the Canadian Arctic. Russia too has its own route, going all the way to Norway. As the ice melts, the Arctic becomes open for commerce. For example, exports leaving Korea, Japan go on a 11,300 nautical mile, 48-day trip through the Suez Canal to Western European ports. The northern route is only 7,600 nautical miles, taking only 35 days, so it shaves off 3,700 nautical miles in 13 days, saving about $80,000 per ship on fuel alone. The problem has always been the cold weather, ice, and lack of facilities for ships that get into trouble. The pros are that it's a shorter distance and there's no problems of piracy that exist in Indonesia and the Horn of Africa. Now more than ever, there is a need for Canadian armed presence in the Arctic. Ships that enter the Canadian Northwest Passage are supposed to have permission and be escorted by the Coast Guard. The United States has been known to send ships unescorted and without permission through the passage. Since the height of the Cold War, the U.S. and Russia have been operating submarines regularly under the Arctic ice. But recently, China has become interested in the Arctic and has been sending ships in there, mapping the seafloor in preparation of sending its own submarines. They have also built a few icebreakers. It won't be long before China pulls out some bogus map claiming that they were in the Arctic before Columbus discovered the New World. The U.S. is claiming that the Northwest Passage is part of an international waterway and not subject to territorial claims. Kind of like the shipping lanes that run through Indonesia and the Singapore Straits. The U.S.-Canada debate as to who controls the Arctic is nothing new, as the debate goes back at least as far as Pierre Trudeau and Nixon. Canadians should insist that the Northwest Passage is a Canadian waterway that has strategic, economic, and environmental implications. That would allow the Canadian government to implement a toll on ships to navigate the passage. Now, the Suez Canal charges a 30,000-ton ship $300,000 to $400,000, while a fully loaded Panama container ship is around $500,000 to pass through that canal. Canada could charge just enough to pay for the extra Coast Guard ships and stations, along with any environmental fees, keeping it cheap enough to attract shipping. Though it is not environmentally ideal, and the Inuit do not want the Eastern Arctic to be developed, though this would provide a source of income for many native Canadians. There are a lot of known and potential natural resources in the region such as oil, natural gas, and mineral wealth. Russia has done more to invest in the North than Canada has. Russia has reactivated or built more military bases along their North Arctic zone to enforce its claim, while Canada has done very little. The Canadian North is the least defended territory on Earth, and that is nothing new, as Canadians have completely ignored the North and have relied on the U.S. to help defend it. Canada has planned to defend the North after World War II, as told by my great-uncle, who was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. When he got out of basic training in 1946, he was sent to Alberta, northern Alberta, just below the tree line, and there he was taught by a native Canadian chief how to survive in the wilderness, him and about 200 guys. Their mission at that time is that the Russians decide to come over the North Pole and invade Canada. They were to disperse into the bush and relay information about any troop movements or aircraft, and also sabotage, ambush as much of the Russians' war machine as possible. Not the best way to spend your time, but in the military. But hey, it was what it was at the time. Now, we are building new patrol ships for the North, but what is also needed is more cold weather fighters, bases, and submarines capable of staying underwater indefinitely. Tolls from shipping through the Northwest Passage would certainly help for that, as well as a few other things. We could also cut foreign aid to countries like China, Saudi Arabia, North Korea, and the Philippines to help pay for all these things. Anyway, that's my position on the Canadian Arctic Northwest Passage. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and click a like if you like. If you don't like, well, let me know in the comment section. Till next time, this is Roman De Silvi signing off.